Hello everyone, this is Manjula Devi P, working as Assistant Professor in GFGC Kanakpura. Today I would like to discuss about one of the very important concept of investment management, that is fixed income securities, which are bonds, preference shares, debentures and the sources of risk attached to fixed income securities. So first and foremost, what is the meaning of fixed income securities and what are the characteristics of them, and then what is the sources of risk? Do they carry any risk, and if so, then what is the source through which they get risk? So fixed income securities are those securities which bear a fixed rate of return. Like if you take a bank deposit, or if you take debentures, if you take preference shares, they always carry a coupon rate. Okay, so when we talk about fixed income securities, the main characteristic of it is that they carry a fixed rate of return, and usually the rate of return is per annum. The return that is expressed is per annum. For example, as I said, debentures, bonds, preference shares, so those are the fixed income securities. What is the characteristics of them? First and foremost, it is always from an issuer. The issuer could be a company, could be a government authority, or could be if you're having a postal deposit, or if you are having a bank deposit, or if you are having a debentures. So all these securities will have an issuer. So he is the one who is obliged to give you the fixed rate of return and also repayment of the principal amount after the fixed interval. Then they carry a maturity time. As I was talking about, along with the fixed rate of return, they also carry a maturity date or a maturity period. Like most of the fixed income securities are not perpetual, will have a maturity period. So hardly if you see, you may see perpetual fixed income securities, but most of them will have their own maturity period. That period may be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, as the case may be. Then the next thing is they'll have a par value. So these securities will have par value. Par value means the face value. Okay, it may be issued at discount, or it may be issued at premium or redeemed at premium, but it will have a par value or the face value, the amount of investment that actually carries its face value. Then it will have a coupon rate, and it is always expressed the frequency of the payment of the fixed return. Coupon rate, as I said, the rate at which they receive the fixed returns. That rate may be expressing the fixed rate of dividend, or the fixed rate of interest, or the fixed rate of return that they are going to get. The coupon rate is always attached to the fixed income securities. At the same time, the rate of return will also, it also has to have a frequency. Like, is that rate of return per annum, or is it half yearly, or is it quarterly? So the rate of return has to be will be expressed always with the fixed income securities. Then of course it will have its own currency denomination. If you are investing in India, of course you will be investing in rupees, or in whichever the currency you are investing, it is always expressed in its currency. Okay, so these are some of the important characteristics of fixed income securities. So then coming to the main topic of the discussion, sources of risk of fixed income securities. So that means uh, you should be already knowing the concept of risk. What is the meaning of risk? Risk can be expressed in terms of investment management, the possibility of loss, or the volatility in the return. Now, as the name itself indicates, it is a fixed income security. There is no question of volatility. For example, if you talk about equity shares, so that may give you 10% dividend one year, next year it may be 5%, next year it may be no dividend at all. Because there is, I mean, it is not, there is no fixed obligation. So that way, it is subject to a lot of volatility in the returns. But when it comes to fixed income securities, that volatility is not there because the return is already fixed, the rate of return. So then, are they risk free? So don't they carry any amount of risk because the rate is already fixed, the return. So the answer would be no. They also carry a risk. What is the risk, or how does the risk arise in case of these fixed income securities? So I think you already know the concept of systematic risk and unsystematic risk. Just to recall the concept, systematic risk are all those risks which is common for all type of securities, for all type of company, for the entire economy as a whole. Okay, these systematic risks are, for example, if I say, if it is interest rate risk, or before that, suppose if recession hits an economy, okay, then the recession is common for all the companies, isn't it? Most of the companies will get affected, or all the companies in fact, in one way or the other. Or recently, or even now, we are seeing the COVID situation. So as the COVID hit the country, or the whole world in fact, so every sector got affected in its own way, isn't it? That means all those companies are open to this systematic risk, which has to be borne by everyone. Or any natural calamity happens in a region, then all the companies or all the sectors which are there will get affected. That means that's the common risk for everyone. That is called as the systematic risk. So these fixed income securities are open to this systematic risk. Though they carry a fixed return, so it doesn't mean that they are risk free. So what are the risks? First and foremost, interest rate risk. What is this interest rate risk? As you all know, in India, interest rates are subject to the monetary policy, and RBI is the authority which comes up with the monetary policy. Now, in the RBI's monetary policy itself, if the base rate, if the bank rate, if the repo rate, if the reverse repo rate, if all these are revised, then naturally the return that you are going to get will also be affected, especially if the rate of return is flexible. Okay, so even these securities are subject to interest rate risk. In the whole economy, if it is reduced, then so it is applicable for the fixed income securities as well. Then comes to credit risk. Credit risk is a default risk. For example, suppose if the companies where you have invested, if the company goes bankrupt, or the companies whom they have lent, if they become bankrupt, or if they are not able to get the money from them, then even they are exposed to the risk of loss. So it doesn't mean you have got into a fixed income security. It doesn't mean that there's no credit risk. There is always a credit risk attached until you get your money back. Okay. So in that period of your maturity period, anything can happen. The company itself may go bankrupt. You have invested in the debentures. So it doesn't mean that your investment is 100% safe. So as the preference shares. So the credit risk is where the chances of losing your investment, or chances where the people whom have to pay, or where the company which has to pay may go default. Then we have something called as inflation risk. This is common with every investment security for that matter. So what is this inflation risk? Say you have invested in a fixed income security, say for 1 lakh, and it promises you a return of say 10%. So at the end of first year, so you are getting 1,10,000 back. 1 lakh your investment plus 10% interest added. So you can say, okay, I got my investment along with the interest. So there's no risk at all. There is an inbuilt risk of inflation if in that situation whatever the amount of goods and services you used to get for 1 lakh, after 1 year, if you had to spend 1,10,000 to get those goods and services, then in fact your investment didn't grow at all. In fact, you didn't get any returns at all, because the 1 lakh of last year is equal to 1 lakh of current year. So your investment or the value of your investment would remain the same. So any fixed income security for that matter is subject to inflation. So if they are giving you a rate which is more than the inflation rate, then maybe your inflation risk is relatively less, but we can't still say that there's no inflation risk. Okay, so hope you got the concept of inflation risk, so which is common for everyone. So as the inflation rate is increasing, so your investment or the value of your investment keeps decreasing, but the rate what you get would be fixed. So in any case, your value, the intrinsic value when we talk about your investment, would not have been increased at all, because inflation is more. Okay, yeah, so these are some of the common risk or systematic risk which fixed income securities are also subject to. Just to have a quick recap of what we discussed in this session, fixed income securities are those securities which bear a fixed rate of return, like debentures, preference shares, bonds, or any security which carries a fixed rate of return. So they usually have a maturity period and a coupon rate, and the frequency of payment of the interest or the fixed return is also mentioned. So comparatively they're less risky, because the rate of return that you can get is already expressed. You all know what is the rate of return that you're going to get. So compared to the market securities or the securities which do not have a fixed return like equity shares, these securities are less risky compared to variable income securities. But it doesn't mean that they are risk free. They are also subject to this entire system of systematic risk, where, to name few, they are subject to interest rate risk, where if the general interest rate in the economy itself is low, then your returns also would be low. Then the credit risk, where the company may go default in the payment of your interest or the principal. Then the inflation risk, which is common, depends on the inflation rate. Though you receive your fixed returns, but still the value of it may not be same as it was, because the entire value of money itself has reduced. Okay, so that is inflation risk. So fixed income securities are also subject to all these types of risks. So these are some of the references which you can go through for having better and clear idea about the concept what we discussed about the fixed income securities. So I have referred that website. You can also check some of the inputs from there, and also some of the textbooks which I have mentioned here. Hope you have got the concept. We'll meet in the next video. Thank you very much.